So this is Calcat the Calcatster, and this is making of the next Starship Locations episode. I was looking at my Trek Core Experience story. The main crux of about the first half of that is the Star Trek superfan fake pitch story, and it was adapted as 2 episodes. The parts of it were adapted as 2 episodes of the story. Chimera and this other planet, Cadruconus. Elements of that appeared in the rewrite stories over the years through Starship Locations. But let's actually tackle the story. Yeah, why not? For the 60th anniversary, let's do a 10-year-old fan story idea, mock pitch idea thing. Let's tackle the Chimera Cadruconus stories. Those 2 planets were TV planets in the story, and names were changed, and we've kind of woven in this character in the stories. He's appeared in the Chimera stories. He's appeared in the Carta stories, and he's appeared off and on. And he's similar in tone to the khaki action figure, but he's actually Harry Kim from Voyager that's been dolled up to look like somebody else. In the Trek Core people and all that, that would be an interesting thing to do. You could do a 90-minute treatment out of that, make it easily. I went and looked at the various rant blogs that Calcat produced in response to other ones, because I didn't want to use the other people's rant blogs. I wanted to use, like what we did with Planet of the Fallen ones, I didn't want to tackle the actual, information from this person's blog, Mike Melt's blog, at all. I wanted to tackle what people said about it, as was suggested by on the Planet one, the Planet of the Fallen ones guy, Jason Colavito. He said, "Don't actually use my commentary stuff. You don't need a byline for me." But basically said, "I don't know you, so you don't want the trolls coming after you. So don't use me as you can use a character, Vita Cola. That's funny. Do that, but don't use the. Yeah, we don't know each other." The same thing with this other thing. It's good advice if you're going to do a blog parody spoof thing, to not directly use their names, and that's fine. Also, we hinted at other in the continuing 60th anniversary, because the 50 or so people that are on the set behind me, the little action figures, you wouldn't want 50 of them in there. That's too much. Grab the ones you think must be most important to the story and use them. There's some on the bridge set, made the bridge look older. Decided kind of to also tackle the silly Trek notion of having the Stardate Zero thing, FS0 thing, which is just next generation. The next generation Stardates turned over. In 2364, the Stardate is 41. The Stardate is 41000, which means that if it's now 40 years later, 39 years later, it would be Stardate 80000 or 2403. Just starting 2403. It must be Gregorian calendar, but there's only 9 months in it because of the way that they made the timeline thing. Fans have tried to work out the star dates. Even Starfleet Academy is using TNG Stardate 700 years later, which they shouldn't be. This doesn't make sense. But yeah, the 881 with another 0 on the end is basically the 3190s. But yeah, so they listen to us over there. They listen to us over there at Starfleet Academy. But what more to go on there? But adapt a fan story that never got an actual pitch officially. Never got a pitch. This would not be directly an adaptation of that script. It would be indirectly. It would be kind of spoofing it. Because, yeah, to give the superfan Mike Gamelt quarter of... We don't have to pay him. But yeah, so that would be silly. Not paying him. He's not in the SAG-AFTRA. He's not in the Writers Guild. He'd be in the WGA anyway. But he's not. But yeah, I'm not either. But so it's a Trek core episode, basically. Sheila V's character meets up with the other Trek core people, and his alter ego as well. So wait a minute, you're not a Vulcan, Now there could be some gags in there for them, but yeah, all summer we're just hammering out Star Trek stuff and content, new fan films, and we get away with it because they're not paying anybody, and it's not AdSense. They don't care as long as you don't make merch or something. They're old Playmates figures, but yeah, they don't mind that. Yeah, there have been other fan films since and stories, but none quite as pervasive as that pitch story idea. And I think we should tackle that. Find out what that is. Clearly, he's a kind of a Cillian, so he has Cillian powers. His thoughts create reality and that kind of thing. That was originally a phrase, a catchphrase from the Jung Swan Academy. That was there for 18 years. That was another story. That was the Marshall Sportiest story in that version. So we're not going to go there for that one. We're not going to do that one. No, this is going to be Trek Core. We might do some TMS people might show up, but it's not about that. As action figures, not the real ones. Just thought I'd point that out. So the controversial Trek Core, in a nutshell, what kind of happened years ago when we were on Trek Core as Chimera, just to go over that a little bit in the making of here. In 2015, there was a new Star Trek movie that was being produced. The new Star Trek movie was going to be called Star Trek Beyond. We know this after the fact, months later and then years later, what actually transpired in that timeline of events. Not in question at all. A Star Trek superfan by the name of Mike Changamelt, who had written for a game called Star Trek Armada 2, not the first one, the sequel. He apparently wrote a script in the 1990s, so around the same. He wrote this script treatment, and he updated it, and he called the website Star Trek Beyond. You can see the problem here with that Paramount had, what CBS had. Also, we didn't realize that CBS and Paramount had broken up years ago and become the CW and CBS and Paramount, and there was no more UPN. It was gone. UPN was the 19 contest. Now, that's what kind of probably springboarded this superfan guy's idea. I probably inadvertently, this other Cillian out there, who I got associated with it in a way, this Mike Gamel guy, he saw the articles and things. He saw that this guy years ago. I'm going to do the same thing he did. This guy years ago. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pitch to Star Trek. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pitch my script to Star Trek. And then he put himself on Trek Movie and Trek PBS and a number of other sites, claiming he was actually pitching within weeks of the story. You can still go on Google and still Google this Star Trek Superfan thing. And it's like, today, 11 years later, there were very few people that said, that doesn't seem right or possible anymore. Because some of those, because there were, and yeah, so, yeah, I didn't have an agent. I wasn't in the Writers Guild or anything. And the writer doesn't make the story. So, note to that as well. I'm trying to make this real brief. So, he took this old 90s script, he dug it out, and he decided, I know what I'm going to do with this script. I'm going to include character images, director marks, showrunner marks, commentary, all throughout, and it's going to be like over 3 hours long if you do that. But he did. And you can't include your fantasy actor characters who you want to be in the story, but you shouldn't include actual actors in the story who weren't there. That's a no-no. That was one of the things that was a no-no. That was one of the red flags, but of many red flags. I would like to explore that story, but through the sort of chiding, mockery, fun stuff. It's going to be fun. Yeah, it's not going to be insulting. It's going to be fun. So this script was he put up a website called Star Trek Beyond. It just happened to coincide with the name of this movie that was going to come out. 2015, pulled out this old script. And the movie's going to come out in 2016 for the 50th anniversary of Star Trek. So if it's connected to the 60th, now it's the 60th, it's 10 years later. It's not really. And the rise of all the new shows, the Kelvin timeline stuff. They did 3 Kelvin timeline movies. They never did a 4th one. They're kicking around a 4th one for years. They want to do an origin thing separate from that, and that's what this is going to sort of spoof, because I'm going to guess that what's going on. Yeah, kind of. If I'm right, that's funny. But no, they're not going to spoof this fan film. Anyway, so what happened is he got some kind of a cease and desist letter commentary or something. That's what the fans figured out later, after the movie came out, pretty much, or the movie was going to come out. They ran with the story all over the internet. It was all over the internet. They ran with the story. There were very few of us that said, something's fishy about this. You guys got to do your research and check that out, because I haven't heard of anybody pitching anything to Star Trek in a decade. So you guys got to less than or more. So you got to do your research and check that out. As a journalism student from San Jose State, I graduated in 2008 from journalism after English was in '98, but journalism was in 2008. 10 years later. So I knew journalism, you gotta quote your sources, find out what you're talking to, do your thing. You can't just put blogs all over the internet saying you're famous, and you're not famous. You're gonna look like a fraud. I mean, you just are. Yeah, don't do that. But he had all his friends out there doing the thing, and they were kind of defending him on the Trek Horse site too, as well. They were like, "Oh, he totally is. You don't pour sour grapes on there, just poo-pooing this kid, and whatever, not a kid, he was in his 40s at the time, and by the 2015 or so, yeah, he was 40s. He wasn't a kid, he was their age, he was our age, he was the same age. Yeah, he's probably just a little younger than me, not by much, now, if he's still around. But yeah, so what happened is his site is abruptly changed to Star Trek Uncharted as they lead toward the movie. That would tell most sleuths of the internet that Paramount wrote him a cease and desist and said, we want your domain name, because it's going to be confused for Star Trek Beyond, and everybody's going to go to your domain name, and that's kind of how it started. That's how it started. They mistook this guy's website for the Star Trek Beyond movie website, which hadn't been up yet. That wasn't Paramount saying come and pitch. That was Paramount saying knock it off. Don't come here. Don't have people trafficking to your website. There were other fan sites that were at the same time, Axanar and Renegades and Spectre and a bunch of other fan film things going on. At least Spectre was like computer generated people, and that was at least a little different. Renegades was actually actors. They got actors to be in it. They got in trouble, and Axanar got in trouble for merchandising and studio and making money on it. If they just made that thing completely under the table, for like they do with the smaller ones like Frontier, Trek Continues, they wouldn't have had a problem. Or Phase 2, they wouldn't have had a problem. They just put it under the said, okay, we're not going to make any money on this at all. We're going to have actors in it, but we're not going to make any money. That's all they needed to do. Well, anyway, so yeah, long story short, trying to keep it pithy. This guy doubles down. By November 2015, he doubles down, claims that he's pitching to Star Trek. Well, of course, Cal Cat and Mark Cards had to immediately go down to Hollywood and find out. So we did. Yes, we went down to Hollywood and found out. Well, that was also the Disneyland trip that we went on in November of 2015. And we found out he's full of it. Yep, came back, he's full of it. He didn't get into Paramount. They kicked him out. They were like, yeah, he tried it. He tried. He was at the door, at the gate. So that whole thing where he's at the thing, so there were people They're long gone connections. People that went to that day they was going to pitch and hung out by the Paramount lot. Yeah, it wasn't us, but we heard about it afterward. And and they were like, yeah, this guy rambled on about a pitch to the guard, basically. The guard is like, you can leave now, sir. That's nice. He didn't have a pitch. He had a fan script that if you made it an episode of Star Trek would have been 3 hours long, a little long. Had a number of issues, and I'll get into that. But yes, also Star Trek writers wrote in and they did their thing too. Although in some of my commentaries I noticed that I kind of, but yeah, so Gimel did not pitch to Star Trek. The Trek Corps people didn't want to hear this. I was one of the voices of reason. It wasn't until Mitchell Ronan and Shea Lavi pointed out, okay, you got to prove it, data stuff. So I went to the Paramount website, and I posted a couple of times a link saying, all right, here's proof. Here's the Star Trek guidelines, and they're revising them. They're going to be revising them when the movie comes out. But here are the guidelines. Guess what it says? You cannot pitch to Star Trek. If anybody sends in any script or material, they will throw it away. If you don't have an agent, you're not famous. They'll even throw away stuff from directors. They threw away Tarantino's script years later. They threw away Straczynski's script. They threw away actually famous people's script, yeah, director's script. We're not going to do that. But yes. And also the likelihood that Mike McMahon doing Lower Decks later on knew and put some of his characters in there is probably a coincidence. I was going to say, oh wow, it's weird that these two characters, Rutherford and Tendi, are similar to the Gimel script. The Gimel script was everywhere. That script was scrutinized more than any Star Trek fan script ever. He probably read it and subconsciously just, I'm going to, he probably did, but we can't prove it. So I'm just saying, we can't prove it. But yeah, Rutherford they took my advice with Rutherford. They're like, oh yeah, he's just a transhuman, as like a reformed Borg or something. That makes a lot more sense. He's just a Borg. Okay, that works. And Tendi is Tendi is a Orion, but have it be sort of cheeky that she's not like the other sexed up Orions. She's like a different kind of Orion. She's like more grounded. She went to Starfleet and stuff. It would be interesting to have an interview with Mike because he ships that. So yeah, this whole thing was ballooned up in the 2015-2016 time period. Was this gigantic fan reaction thing for the 40th anniversary. Great publicity for CBS and Paramount. That was another thing screwy about the script that set it off, actually. He was writing a script of sending it to Paramount. He should have said, I pitched to CBS. Paramount Studios, that's the film end. That's the movies. And I've made this long story short long, which is great. But yeah, the studio. But he didn't. He couldn't have pitched because he wasn't famous. He just wrote a game. I wrote primitive games on there. I've been fan films. I've actually have more fan films with Star Trek related stuff that he ever did. And fan film for like right on to film. I put stuff out. Calicat and March Guard stuff. I could pitch to Star Trek. I'm famous enough. They could say like, oh, he come in and pitched. He's famous. They would throw it away. I'm not saying it would go. They would go for it. They would toss it. But it would be like, we don't want that. Yeah, we heard you. Yeah. Yeah. So it didn't work out, but he doubled down, and then he had some notes later on when Star Trek Discovery started. He didn't really go into Lower Decks so much, but Star Trek Discovery, you think he would have gone into Lower Decks? You wouldn't think he would have said, "Oh, my character is on Lower Decks." And he didn't do that, which is interesting. But he doubled down on the other stuff and claimed that he was a showrunner He went completely bonkers. He went into and talked to, yeah, Goldsmith and Gold. You got the names wrong. Akiva Goldsman is his name, not Goldsmith. Akiva Goldsman. Yeah, sure you did. Sure, you talked to the guy who wrote Star Trek Picard. Yeah, sure he did. Sure he did. Advise on Picard season 2. I advise they not go to 2024, but they did it anyways. No, I didn't really, but he thinks he did. So there's a lot of other, yeah. I don't necessarily want to rat on this one person specifically because that's not cool. It's the script and the story, and it's still out there, and the actors are still there. Another thing that's goofy is he used somebody's fan art, and that's another person kind of complained and said, like, wait a minute, you didn't ask me for permission to use that ship. Fan art. It's not even an original fan art. But yeah, Star Trek Uncharted. And then he obviously saw another game out there, Uncharted, which was very popular at the time. And I'll just call it that. So, originality, not one of his things. The story premise was a Stargate Andromeda beats Star Trek, basically. And it was going to be like they build a Stargate to go to Andromeda and come back. The captain's like Kirk, but a stereotype version of Kirk. He's got a horny first officer that he's got like there's like I think it's just the idea that the audacity of fans so they go yeah. And then some of them kind of splintered off. And you know, like with the Star Wars, with all the Star Wars haters and naysayers and stuff, some of these guys that were disappointed by the Gamel script didn't really happen, went off on a tangent and became their own thing, their own version of the haters, for Star Trek haters. And they're still around, unfortunately. But Mike, I was just saying that he didn't pitch to Star Trek. I was just saying, here's the guidelines. The guidelines came out in 2016, although J.J. Abrams pulled back on some of them. I texted him. I said, okay, some of these are unfair. And I wrote a blog about it. Here, watch my blog. These are unfair. Here's what, and it's one of the most popular Trek blog commentaries on that channel, Chimera channel. Going into why the guidelines are a little too strict. The guidelines were originally like, you can't do any fan films that are so good quality they're confused for the show. Well, for one thing, fans, you couldn't do that, so that's a stupid rule. I said no. If the fans come up with something that's almost as good as the movies, that means that your movies aren't very good. See, you're a Hollywood studio. So that's that. Usually fan films do not look professional. The professional thing is weird. They say don't get Hollywood actors to be in your movie, but I also say, well, go back on that too. If you can get an actor to be in your movie, that's cool. Okay, just have them sign an NDA or something. Yeah, just say, okay, you've got an actor in here. You're not promoting it. You're not selling it. Star Trek movie together. Fan film. Yeah, that's what you do. And you do it on a low budget. I use the fan film action figures and stuff like that. Yeah. And the other... Yeah, the Star Trek fans tend to think that's great reality thing with their fan films. I could just make myself be a showrunner. He was commenting on why Star Trek is different or whatever, as Discovery started. The dude did not pitch to Star Trek, nor was he brought in as a showrunner for Discovery. That doesn't make any sense. No, it definitely wouldn't let him in. He would be a writer, basically. He'd be a writer. The writer is they always blame the writers for like a bad script. But I say blame the producers because they okayed it. The writers just come in to write the story. If they're a good or a bad writer, that doesn't mean that they ruined the story. That a good actor can turn a bad script into a good script. Robin Williams, but it's like Rutger Hauer could take lines that don't make any sense and say like, oh, I can just rewrite these lines in this sci-fi movie, it'll sound better. Harrison Ford did that too a couple of times. I'm gonna rewrite this, George. It doesn't make sense. People don't talk like this. I'm gonna say this line different. I'm gonna say it better. It's gonna work, George. It's gonna work. And then he did, and it worked. So yeah, but that's Star Wars. The other was a reference to Blade Runner. Anyway, so yeah, Tears in the Rain. Yes. But yeah, so Star Trek the fan film thing. Yeah, you know, fan films. Don't claim to be a showrunner if you've never been a showrunner. Yeah, don't do that. You're gonna be mocked like 10 years later in the show. We will give him a byline though. Put the byline in the credits. So yes, 11 years later, a fan series has decided to kind of use elements of your script. Because why the heck not? It would make a great parody. Anyway, so yeah, fan films. It's a spoof, yes. But not the way I'm gonna do it. It's a little different. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to do that next 3 days before the outing back down south. But because this is Cal-Cat, Cal-Catster, and yeah, this is making of the Starship Locations Uncharted movie. Well, Uncharted controversy movie. Yeah, it's 11 years in the past. Why not? So in the story premise is that it's kind of ludicrous, and it's also a Star Trek premise. The Red Letter Media was discussing ludicrous joke ideas and stuff on their Star Trek behind the scenes thing just now as I watched before rendering this last movie, and although that has little relevance, they mentioned those too much comedy in Star Trek. I don't think there is. It just depends on what kind of comedy it is. They don't particularly like the comedy angle. It goes with the story though, because like, okay, what would happen if we had their pitch on their website? It's very similar to this very episode, which is kind of eerie and bizarre. Okay. The episode isn't. I used the music from Starship Chimera. There was plenty in the library from the library, so it's different music. It sounds different. It's a warp matrix music. It's sort of like just a tune going on. Yeah, so I thought that would be cool. Also, the Chimera movie sped it up a little bit. And so yeah, so the premise of the whole thing was kind of roughly explained last time. I'll kind of have to explain it again. But yeah, the idea of a Starfleet crew doing something that doesn't really directly affect the universe is their premise. But this does affect the universe because of this silly idea. The idea of Stardate Zero. Because the next generation Stardates started in 2364 and each year it would be another tick on in the digits, in the thousands. The thousand digit would go up by one. So season 1 was 41000, season 2 was 42000, season 10 would have been 51000, stuff like that. So now it's in the 800s. It's approximately 39 years after the TNG. 2403 currently. It would be the beginning of the 29th season of Star Trek. We jumped ahead of the Berman era. But back when they wrote the show's Bible, and the Tribbles guy, David Gerald, was involved with the show's Bible for the show. And he was all, yeah, they would restart the Stardates. But if you calculated back, you'd find out that if you took the thousandth digit, calculated back, you would find out that it goes back to January 1st, 2323. Stardates changed over to 0. Classic Trek reset itself. So that's 80 years in Picard's past at this point, 78, 80 years in his past. And that was the beginning of Next Generation. Started off 78 years after the original stories in 2364, which means that it ended in 2396 from their perspective. So it was a little earlier. That's what messed up the timeline with Picard series, actually. So they didn't look at Stardate Zero, they looked at the other one. It's a ludicrous, silly idea. Okay, we're gonna make fun of the universe-ending story by having somebody go back to Stardate Zero to abduct Cadet Picard on his first day at the Academy. So that's the premise of the story. And what better Cillian to accomplish this than Mike Gamelt, one of the Cillians from Starship Locations, introduced in the Starship Locations episode where they go to the Miriam planet. He was also playing Khaki in that episode, but it's supposed to be Mike Gamelt. That's supposed to be who it is. Yeah, and he mentions the pitch idea. So what's going on? And Mark's Card's a little worthy about doing yet another universe story, and making making a mockery of that character. But I think it works because it's been over 11 years, and since what he did on the internet, and it was nothing shocking. It was nothing bad. He was an influencer on the internet. So basically, I think I explained this in the other making of. There's not much of a making of on this. There wasn't much of a making of the last episode either, because it was mainly behind the scenes kind of thing, mainly straight through with the ships doing their thing. Yeah, the last two stories, including the tribute, were all done like immediately into. Yeah, they were hardly any script. This one actually has a script. I printed up the transcripts for discussions online. Here to discuss this other thing that happened. In late 2015, all the trades, all Trek sites, John Campia calls them fart.coms, all these trade places all over, starting the Trek movie and some of the other ones, some of the other websites, started posting about the Star Trek superfan that's pitching to Star Trek. They went all over the internet. They went all over the internet about this pitch guy. It hit Trek Core as well, and he posted on Trek Core as well, and yeah, and we did too, and yeah, this story directly addresses what was going on when that happened. This story is more about the idea of this person pitching than it is the actual pitch. Although the pitch is in it. The pitch is in it, and the show's Bible is in it. It's actually mentioned in there. And the characters and what they were like. Some of the names now, 11 years later, don't make any sense. Like, what is the Big Bang Theory? Well, some people might still know what that is. Why is that mentioned? What is the nature of what's the beginning of the Me Too movement? It just started. There's a misogynistic character who's they just included. There's a character who's ditzy that he included. But there's a strong woman thrown in there too. There's like a Joss Whedon type character thrown in there. Although Joss Whedon was not actually a feminist, he claimed to be, but he was not. Oddly enough, one of my friends figured it out years ago. And you think then this one was the person you would not least expect. It was Jim Bufkin. Least expect to figure that out, but he did. He could tell. We watched the Firefly movie, Serenity, and he's like, that guy's not a feminist. He's pretending to be a feminist. I can tell. I don't know how he could have tell, but he could tell. He could tell. It's not a feminist. Anyway, he wasn't. Turns out, but we're not talking about Joss Whedon. What we want to do here is so this superfan, Star Trek superfan. He had a website that was called Star Trek Beyond. You can see where this is going. It's called Star Trek Beyond. It was a website. The movie was yet to come out, and the movie was yet to come out. Star Trek Beyond was in production. Paramount got wind of it and wrote him a cease and desist. Basically, they wrote him what amounts to a cease and desist, but they also said, okay, we're going to take that domain name. It's ours. We want to use it for the next movie. To confuse people. So they wrote him a letter. So he thought, oh, this is an opportunity. Him and his friends got together. I'm sure it wasn't just him. It was him and his friends got together. Decided, okay, well, we'll do an elaborate story, and maybe you'll get to pitch for Star Trek. But he doubled down over the years, over the months and then years, convinced himself that he actually did. And, yeah. This led to all kinds of fan letters and things and confusion over at Paramount. Then, of course, Paramount and CBS. He said he pitched to Paramount. That was the main thing that was wrong. Well, that and the NDA. So the pitch would not be to Paramount. Back then, in that time period, Paramount and CBS were not remerged. Like they merged back together when Skydance acquired them a couple of years ago. But back then, 11 years ago, they weren't merged. So if he was going to make up this story, he should have said CBS. I went to pitch at CBS. And then that would have made a little more sense. Paramount was well known, more known, so they're like, okay, it's Paramount. It's Paramount, just the people that wrote the letter. Yeah. There was a copy floating around of that cease letter somewhere online, if you want to read it. They posted it. Somebody posted it. But yeah, yeah, I don't think I have a copy of it anywhere, but it's out there. My channel was bigger back then, 2015 to 2020 roughly. My original reviews channel was larger, more subscribers, more fans, subscriptions, stuff. You could tell over 70,000 views. That back then when I had probably 10,000 views, that's a lot. Yeah, I was in the know. I was kind of an influencer on YouTube. Not so much anymore because the algorithm ate the channel's subscribers, most of them. I don't know why. But yes, as I left. But back then, let's not talk about that. Back then, in 2015, November 20 around the time that Mark's Cards and I went to Disneyland. In 2015. It was the same time that this fellow was down there allegedly pitching at Paramount a CBS show. Now the thing is, what was on his website was a fan script, a teleplay, long teleplay. It's in the episode. If you want to see the episode, the whole story is in this episode. But if you want to see this long teleplay, where he wrote the show's Bible into the story. Now, to explain what a show's Bible is. A show's Bible is the outline of the characters, setting, and situations. It's the outline, basically. Outline the characters, settings, and situations of your given TV show. As a showrunner, you put that out, and you want to let people know their universe-ending weapon was a kind of a joke in our stories because they kept doing it on the new Star Trek all the time. Now back to trying to stick to the story. I keep going off on a tangent. Going back to the story. Okay, so Gemelt convinced like maybe 20, 25 different websites. Got it from Trek Movie. Got it from Variety even. That and Trek BBS and 2 or 3 others that started it. Him and his friends, a couple of his friends just knew people in that business, in that part of the fandom. And yeah, they put that out there. And of course the Axanar people also were at that same time. They're like, oh yeah, we want to go out there too. We're going to do our stuff as well. And Axanar people, theirs failed. Apparently CBS and Paramount separately got mad and put up guidelines soon after that, right when the movie came out. A little bit before the movie came out, Trek Beyond, saying, okay, here are the Star Trek guidelines, and they were a little too strict. And on my channel, I was like going on about that. But he couldn't have pitched in November of 2015. He could not have. He went on to say in later stories and interviews with these other fans that that Mr. Gamelta not only pitched, but pitched as a showrunner of his TV show to the Star Trek people. And I think I went over a little of this before, but now I'm going on a little bit more into it, a little bit more in depth as a journalism graduate, from years ago, in 2008, and going on and saying, doing a little sleuthing there and saying like, yeah, and it did on Trek Core as well. The thread then ended and was thrown in something called the whole thread, the Gamelt threads. They were all thrown away because there was a bunch of haters that also got in there, and they were like, "Oh, Star Trek sucks now," because the Discovery had started, and people didn't like Discovery because there was a gay guy on it. They freaked out because there was a gay guy, and there was a black woman captain. They were freaked out by that. That's ridiculous. Yes, I know. But the man trolls, they do stuff like that. Now this new show was gonna, yeah, Discovery had issues, but that wasn't the issue. The issue was that the script writing wasn't good. Ironically, if he had been a writer on Discovery, which he was not, he would have fit in on the first season of Discovery. They would have been all for it. Yeah, okay. But yes, the irony of this story, and it gets to it at the end of the story, is that the whole thing blew up. Mainly because people started reading the script. And deductive reasoning would indicate, and Occam's razor would indicate it. Yes, if you eliminate the impossible, the improbable must therefore be the truth. Yeah, if you cannot post to Star Trek, you cannot pitch there. He didn't. He couldn't have. Yes. But yes. So the story doesn't necessarily mock this guy. It doesn't mock him. It makes him a fictional character in the story, and in that is going on about this thing. He decides to use his powers. He's got Q-like Cillian powers, and he uses his powers to go back to Stardate Zero and abduct Picard, thus ending the next generation. So the entire new Star Trek from 40 years ago never happens. Which is a crazy idea. It's fun. It's like, okay, it's the universe-ending MacGuffin, but it's a joke. That I think Red Letter Media would like that. They would be like, oh, that's actually funny. Yeah, okay, that I like that. Okay, that works. But what they want for their pitch, when they pitch, was a story that has nothing to do with the universe-ending MacGuffin. No MacGuffin. So theirs will be no MacGuffin. When one of theirs. They didn't even really talk about the 60th anniversary. They just mainly talked about other stuff. But back to in Klingon garb from Discovery. But we're going to go back to Gamelt here. Yeah. He doubled down. He thought that he went in to talk to the writers' room and the directors and the producers of what is awesome about Star Trek and how to make it more culturally diverse and everything. He's diverse himself, but he he's German and Asian, and he wrote for some video games. And the thing is, he couldn't have. He's not famous. He couldn't have gone into the Paramount lot. We were at Disney, so it's different. But no, we were at Disneyland in the park. Anyway, so and back again in last year. But yes, several in September last year. So we have we didn't pitch, but he didn't either. But he's convinced he did, and he talked to the showrunners. But if you look at the dialogue that he has with allegedly with the producers, whose names he gets wrong, incidentally. The dialogue is cribbed from some of Picard and Kirk and Janeway's speeches from Star Trek. I would know. I've studied it as extensively as Red Letter Media guys have, if not more so. And yeah, I don't think I could name specific characters necessarily that are obscure or stories that are obscure, but for the most part, yeah, even the new stuff. But no, he did not pitch Discovery. He did not pitch Lower Decks. It's just a weird coincidence. And in this story, I addressed that. In that he, one of his characters is a transhuman, meaning a cyborg. Human meaning a cyborg. And you might think, oh, that's like Rutherford in Lower Decks. It's addressed in there. Rutherford shows up in a cameo. But not exactly, because he took the picture from somebody else, put it in there. It happened putting up actor faces in pictures. I won't name all the actors, just point I think the blog is still there if you want to check it out. So basically, it was a cease and desist, and they basically said, okay, you're yeah, we're gonna take your domain name, and he changed it to Star Trek Uncharted, which is still derivative. It's derivative of the Uncharted games, but it's also derivative of Stargate Andromeda, the third Stargate series. Yeah, so there's nothing original about it. Characters are kind of stereotypes. There's, of course, a flaming gay guy. There's a strong, powerful Amazonian woman. There's an Orion pirate, which is similar to Tindy, but not intentionally. I think Mike McMahon might have been one of the people that critiqued the story, and he just kind of remembered it offhandedly when he created Lower Decks, and he included those two. I don't think it was an attempt to pay homage to him. I think or even to steal it. I think it's just, it's in the back of my head that these two characters, the breakout characters in the story, are the most interesting ones are Tindy and Rutherford. Yeah. He included a Billups, too. Yeah, and a jock guy. It's just very similar. But no, he did not pitch Lower Decks to Star Trek. He should, and oddly enough, he doesn't mention Lower Decks, which is the most close to his story. But yes, I don't know what the website's going now. I don't know him. I don't know what they're doing currently. I don't really care to look. This is about 11 years ago in the story when he's a Cillian. Yeah. So but to the crew and the cast, it is 24031, and it is to them a year earlier because of the time warp, so that it lines up with. Yeah, I wanted to do a Stardate Zero story since the beginning, and I wanted to update and do a thing with that, and so I decided that Gamil should be the catalyst, as well as some of the troop that's left over. So it kind of like that. They go with him. They get a ship. They get the Zabulveda. I used one of the Canary spaceships as the Zabulveda in the background. I think it's the Discovery, which is funny. But yes, from the side and from the back. Yeah. So yeah. There's I'm not making fun of him. I'm just making fun of the idea that so many people went for his story and believed it without question, without thinking about it. And they should have realized all the red flags immediately, because, for the main thing is, who is this guy? Who was this guy? Well, he helped on one of the Star Trek games. So he was a little bit famous in the 90s, helping out a Star Trek game. That's it. He hadn't done anything since. Never written any stories, he hadn't done anything since, no fanzines. If he was a zine guy, that would have been different. If he was so it still wouldn't have been famous enough. If he was a shipping writer, like Will Wheaton is, he would have been, okay, well, he's also been on Star Trek. He was Deep Space, he was a Next Gen, Wesley, Deep Space. Next Gen, Wesley. Wesley Crusher. But yes, that would make sense. If he was like an ex-actor that had been on the show, maybe he could submit. Some people that were actors tried to submit Star Trek ideas. They turned them down, mostly. Even Tim Russ, back in the day. But yeah, the idea that some random internet guy can be a showrunner with one story is laughable. It's ludicrous. It's ridiculous. It's a big hard to say. And so, yes, it's ridiculous that Stardate Zero exists as well. And that's kind of the premise of the stories. Well, this is ridiculous. Why is this timeline reset? Because I'm in the academy. What Picard says. That's funny. That's very funny. But yes, also we get shots of my vacation from July 4th of San Jose State as Starfleet Academy. Because of course. Yeah. But yeah. Starfleet Academy. So there we go. Yeah, it's a fun story. It's very funny. That even the character realizes some character growth there, which you didn't get. Yeah, they should have realized. Okay. First they should have realized. Well, he's not famous, so how did he even talk to Paramount. Then they should have said, okay, maybe Paramount just wanted his website. They wanted to take it. They should have made that assumption immediately. And then of course, the cease letter. Somebody published. I read it. It was very legally. And it's like, yeah, they basically want your domain name. Yeah, that's all. But yes, but the Trek, back in the day, the Trek Corps people didn't want to hear that. It ended up in their Kobayashi group saying, never went beyond 2016 on their talk about that. They banned it because, all the trolls. But I was the one voice of reason. Well, there were, okay, I wasn't the only one. I was one of them. A couple of the mods also were, and that's mentioned in there because caricatures of the mods show up. We got Mr. Picard. We got very funny cameo. We've got well, not really. It's a caricature. We've got C'est la vie caricature as well, and Prometheus is the Green Kirk in this one. You'll find that funny. And just like on the old Trek Core website, the character of Tupperfan, or Tup, appears in the very beginning and disappears for the rest of the movie. He's not there. This is what I used to do on the blog. So yes, it's a very funny story. It doesn't matter. It comes and goes. It's fine. But transhuman. The robot. That is the robot, not the trans. I don't think he intended to include trans person. He meant transhuman. So there's some confusion in the blog and in the transcript. I think he meant transhuman, and I addressed that in this. I have one of the characters say, I think he meant this other thing. But for clarity's sake, here's what a trans person is, because I don't think that's what he meant. So that's in there. But yes, I think he meant that. Because he also included a gay caricature, flamboyant guy in there. So clearly he intended to not be PC at all. And a ditzy blonde, reminiscent of a character from a TV show from the mid 2000s. but yes, mid 2010s, I should say. Yeah, mid 2010s. Yes. It's so this is that story. It's sort of a jokey thing. It's a 60th anniversary special episode. It is not labeled Star Trek. It's not Starship Legacy. It is a Starship Locations Elseworld story, and it is called like Elseworld, like the DC kind of thing. Even though this is clearly more Marvel-y than DC, but this one is called Uncharted. Starship Locations Uncharted. His script is finally in episodic form. Sort of the show's Bible is. Very little of the story is actually described. And when you read the script, which is 3 hours long, I'm sure it's still online, and you read it, you will find that most of it is the show's Bible. Because part of the problem with it was that was another thing that was odd. It was, if you were even remotely a scriptwriter, aware of script writing and short story writing, evidently he wasn't. If you were, you would realize that, okay, well, in TV, every page is a minute. So you can't have extra exposition, you can't have extra cue marks, you can't have extra like description of a fight scene for a whole page. Don't do that. You can't have description of a space, glorious space thing through a whole scene. Every line of text counts in a script. Write a script. You don't add technobabble. I found that in the Voyager scripts. I had DS9 and Voyager scripts that I got to read to do my stuff. That whenever it said a technobabble line, it just said tech, and it was in quotes tech. So we can add that later. Like the warp core or fire phasers, that would be in there. But if it was some weird new thing, the director would add that. And the confusing thing is that currently nowadays, a lot of the producer directors are actually also the writers, and that's probably what's screwing up modern Star Trek. Is there's too many what's the old expression? Too many cooks in the kitchen. Yeah, that's it. Too many cooks in the kitchen, and they all want to do their thing, and there's no like accountability because the executive producer also like went over the scripts and rewrote them. To yeah, and the director is another writer. No, don't do that. I can do that because it's different. Fan films, I can do that. I can be the showrunner and the writer director. Now, what he should have done, well, first of all, he didn't pitch. Okay, so yeah, you got your script. I think I've explained all this before, and it's not all that important. So if your script is equivalent of 300 pages long, it's 300 minutes long. Too long. Too long. Too long. Yeah, got to cut some stuff out. This particular story, this script, that this was based on, the transcript, was roughly 110 pages long, which interestingly enough came out to just a little over 2 hours. So it's almost right, 120 pages, and it's almost. There's just a little. I guess some of the dialogue is just a little longer than. It comes out just about right. So yeah, it's a little long, but the script was too. And yeah, and that's another red flag there that they never addressed. He only had one script up on that website. One script, one story. This one person, one story. That script, allegedly, Paramount looked at it and said, so great that the one guy, one script, one story, and he's in his 40s when he wrote it. Well, he was in his 20s when he wrote it, but he rewrote it in his 40s. As he was not a kid. They kept saying, oh, it's a kid. Ronan said that on the website. But it's a kid. They're making fun of him. And I was like, that's not a kid. The guy's my age. Yeah, he quoted that. I was like, he is my age. He's like, yeah. At the time, he was like, yeah, in 2015, so he's around 40. He's around 40 years old. He's not a kid. He knows better. but yes, but yes, the definitely knows better. So if you're gonna market your fan film, stuff, do a fan film. He never did. Take that script, rewrite it as a fan film. Get your friends. You had plenty of friends that would put their stuff on their website. Why don't you do a fan film? Take that story and make it a fan film, because long form fan films were a big deal back then. I know the guidelines said you can't do that, but then they lifted some of them, per our suggestions. Yes. The fan films were too strict. They were like, oh, you can't make something that's movie length. It's like, yeah, you can. You can't make something with nice costumes that look good in its studio hall. Yes, you can. But the one thing you can't do, the guidelines from 2016, later on, you cannot make him profit, which is what Axonar tried to do. And that's why they kicked him. They got him bad. And that's why Renegades also wasn't supposed to make money. Story. So you have talking points. You have not guy that wasn't famous, guy that wrote one script only, very long one, and hasn't taken any script writing courses at that point. Obviously, that would be two. Characters were stereotypes and ideas. They were not actually characters. They were ideas. And modern Trek since 2017 or so, 2018, has been a lot like characters. But yes, and Academy, they're picking on Academy too, and it's like, well, Academy is actually the most like a Gamelt script. It's the most like it. So, insubordinate cadet officers running around, acting like jerks. Great. Ditzy characters and other ones. Okay, sure. But no. So don't do that. Modern Star Trek does suffer from poor writing. But you can't just blame the writers. It's the directors that signed off on it. The producer that signed off on it. Yeah, too many cooks in that kitchen. That's what it is. Too many cooks in the kitchen. And we could go on infinitum about what messed up stuff about new Star Trek. But suffice to say, since I'm of the next generation, and I was a teenager when the show was on, Will Wheaton's a little younger than me. But yes, Gamel's. You still look up the Star Trek superfan thing, you'll still find it, and you won't find much of the debunking. They're still convinced that he went there. That the Trek Core, when the Trek Core blog went away, their blogging feature went away, the connections to the Google stuff and all that led back to people like us that said, no, that didn't happen. I know it didn't happen. Here's the, the stuff that says it didn't happen. Those disappeared, so there's hard to find my stuff. But if you do look for the stuff that debunks it, it's usually me. But no, it's just all like he couldn't have. There were rules about doing that. In the episode jokingly says in the episode up here that there's a this is about the pitch, not about the guy. It's about the pitch, and about the Cillian who has powers. It uses his powers. Yeah, it's like they didn't need. They should have deduced that it was made up. But he's still convinced it isn't. Oh, it's a little weird. But he made it up. In the guidelines say no unagented, no unsolicited screenplay, script, or treatment. If you send it in to us, we will throw it away. Don't email it to us. Don't send it in some kind of other format. We will throw it out. That's what they said in 2016 to us. I think what confused people like the superfan was that there was a writing contest in the 90s. I think I mentioned this before. And yes, a lot of us did submit to that writing contest. And eventually we had rejection letters written. We got our stuff back, which is cool. Some of us got our stuff back. We didn't end up on the new Star Trek, so. But yeah, this one gets a byline for Gamelt here. There's a byline. I've been mentioning his character in the Carta series. He's a villain in the Carta series too. This actually closes that. This actually says okay, that's what this. If it's a wraparound timeline thing, and you think of the ending part where Picard says, I have a job for you. Take it now. It's probably going to go to the Carta planet. In the other story. Okay. Yeah, sure. Sure, why not? That's probably what it is. I'm guessing that's what it is. Stardate Zero. Yes, I finally did it. Except the original Stardate Zero story was one of my stories was a little different. The Q. Anyway, so yeah, it's a sort of a Elseworld story. If you only wrote one script, you're not famous, you have one website, how on earth did you get all over the internet? Now that's just really, really weird how they went with that without even checking. It's like, oh my goodness, arg! Neat, snazzy, nice pictures of ships and characters and a transhuman, basically a cyborg. Not a trans person. A trans person would have been interesting. A trans person furry, even more so, or perhaps two, or but they didn't do that. He didn't think of that. He didn't want to go that far. He wasn't progressive. He was clearly not progressive. No, he just wanted caricatures of people, and a Captain Kirk commander, and of course the first officer was him, literally it was him. But yes, the first officer was him. It's down. Then again, Stardate Zero. Change the star dates all over the Federation because Picard is in the Academy. Yeah. It's canon. Go read about it on Trek Movie. Stardate Zero. Yes. It's canon. It's canon. That's bizarre. Even Picard in the story goes, what? I mean to say that when I was a cadet, the timeline changed because of me? That's preposterous. Kind of is. Yes. Oh. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the guy that's not famous. I'm not famous anymore either, but I have more stuff. But yeah, they wouldn't have me do do pitch Star Trek either. Who's this guy? Yeah. Didn't even have an agent. No an agent in material here. But yeah, the pictures he used on the website were not his. He didn't draw them. He just cribbed them from the internet. They put all that. They showed that transhuman Geordie LaForge board all over the internet. That's probably what wants the idea of the other guy. The pictures, but he didn't even draw that picture. Someone else did. He just used it, and the ship too. Someone else did. And they on the Trek BBS website, they were like, "Oh, that's actually that guy's ship. This guy's complaining about it." But draw your own ships. I don't do 3D ships either. It's hard. I tried to take the 3D course in 2024. It didn't work. So I built the ships as models. It's easier that way as the models. So I'm gonna end this here, where it's going on way too long. It's just making of this story. Enjoy the episode. It's fun. It's not an expose of an old story from 11 years ago. It really isn't. It's more of a treatise on a bizarre adventure story featuring a new and bizarre villainous antagonist character and his friends. And I wouldn't say it's entirely an antagonist that is like a super villain. He wants to be one, but he's just not very good at it. So yeah, it is kind of the bad guy from the Incredibles as well, who was kind of like that. a little more unhinged. But yes, he doesn't really want to destroy the universe. He just wants to rewrite it in his own image, which is actually funny. But it turns out it's young Picard that rewrote it in his own image, which I think is kind of interesting. Yeah, how did young Picard do that? All of Starfleet changed their star dates to 0. Yeah, we know David Gerald was being and his buddies were being cheeky, but still. This is the Calcatster. Apparently, I was going through this and looking at the least viewed episode on here is Stardate Zero, 2 weeks ago. And probably because of the title, nobody recognizes it. Like I did with those other two, where I said that those other 2 episodes that came later were not called Uncharted in the when I was reissued them. I think I want to change that. I think I want to make that a legacy episode, pull it into the legacy lexicon of this season, because it is anyway. Just say it. So what I want to do is I want to reissue the episode. Simple title change to the credits. Easy enough to do. And then, because Stardate Zero, there's no views. It's 3 views, 4 views, probably mine. And unlike the internet fever storm that was the original Gumelt story, in actuality, the fans of the Chimera channel don't care about it if it's called that. So the proposal is to change the title card to Star Trek Legacy and then air it. Just do a redo of the making of and a redo of Stardate Zero. Just remake the episode without. Yeah, so that this would be added to the making of the story, but changing the making of and the title card, because there's no. So it's going to be part of Legacy again. Stardate Zero. Maybe the concept of Stardate Zero is a little weird too. On the set, here's the set that's set up for after the convention. So that's a good idea. Let's just reissue Stardate Zero, pulling it into the Legacy trilogy and taking out all the other one, because if it's called Legacy, then people watch it. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, this is the Calicaster again on the making of.
You're a little over an hour and 10 minutes into the making of the other story. I'm re-releasing Stardate Zero 10 days later. 10 days after actually a little over 10 days, 12 days after the, yeah, 12 days after that. Yeah, it's unthinkable that on the channel that something that's been sitting there for several days be pulled several days after the fact. And not for content necessarily. I just thought that, like, okay, I pulled those other two stories and changed out the Uncharted title and changed the title and made changes to those other two episodes that were the two TMS episodes. And I thought that now the other one that came before them, the Uncharted one, shouldn't be Uncharted because why should it be a separate story, a separate entity? Why not just have it be Legacy? One of the main reasons, of course, trying to keep the profile interesting and lore. With the martial sports people, those are people that could actually lawyer up and complain about, if we get go a little too far with it. Gamel, not so much. But still, yeah, I'm gonna put the episode up, and the episode itself is not changed because this is so far in the past and everything. It's not people we were familiar with for 18 years. It's not like that. This person was someone on the internet that was freaking out, but like the Orville people do today. And there was no, they're not doing that either. Before the convention thing, I thought it would just be a better thing to go back and trim that. Change the title, take out the title that says Uncharted, and put a Legacy in its place. So even the thing where it says, well, there's an extra playlist. There isn't. It'll take that. There's nothing on the playlist now. And the other archive site could take the story as well and run with it if it wants to. But yeah, I'm not going to cut the episode down. It doesn't need to be. It's fine the way it is. And so there's your story. And I thought that I would just clarify that a little bit till the end of this. Nobody told us you have to change the title from the other one to the other one. It's the other way around. In this case, Gamelt was told he couldn't use Star Trek Beyond, so he changed it to Star Trek Uncharted. Whereas we're the fan film current series, season 3 of Star Trek, Starship Legacy, and we're basically saying, or I'm basically saying as the producer, no, I want to do it the other way around. It is a Star Trek parody, and it's more recognizable as Legacy. So change it back. So it's kind of. Anyway, so yeah. But yeah, he didn't complain, obviously. That was. Yeah, so there you go. Making of. Yeah. This is Clint Cowpoke, director of Stardate Zero. So basically, we kind of rushed this to final production. The re-release this without actually going through the episode itself, looking for errors. This apparently was a version of it that was not corrected for errors. So we corrected it for errors. There were a few glocks in there, a few glicks. Mostly dialogue errors and breathy pauses, mainly, totaling 6.5 minutes of footage that wasn't necessary in the movie. Yeah, and there were a couple of repeated scenes, and should not have posted this last night, early this morning. I guess you can put it up on the archive as well, to save it as a. But yeah, take it off the main channel, put up the director's version, which is a better version anyway. watching the pacing of the original story, as we actually watched it, we discovered that oh my, there's the first 30 minutes of this is a mess. So go back and fix that. Then there's a few clicks throughout the remaining 90 minutes that needed, roughly 90 minutes, that needed to be short of. Nothing serious involving the story and the characters doing their Gemelt lines about this random super fan Star Trek guy that nobody wants to see. But I guess we felt like we were going to do this. Just if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. The other super fans at the time were Continues and Renegades and Phase 2, and also Axanar was at the same time that this Gemelt story happened. So probably the main reason that he became popular wasn't that it was just brand recognition. There were other super fans, and he was just one of them. And now, when you go back and look at that story, it's like nobody cares. But only other fans would care. He's similar to some of the people that trying to will and hype the Orville back into existence. It ended with a wedding. Third season is fine. Shouldn't go any further than that. It's fine the way it is. Don't make any more. Stop. And Disney agrees, so they're not making any more. Yeah, but that's another story, and we're not dealing with that. But it is kind of like the same idea. The superfan guy convinced a bunch of his friends that he pitched for Star Trek. He didn't. It's not so much making fun of the guy. There was a line about that in there. I took that out. I took out the line about the Cal Hazel character admitting, all right, his fan films might have inspired it. That's not so. He knows nothing about the fan film site, so no, we didn't inspire him. Probably Axanar did. Not us. No, not us. He didn't know about the story. Why did I put that in there? So I got that out. That didn't make sense. And I filmed it. Oh yeah, this person didn't pitch. This person was just very overexcited and OCD and just thought they pitched for Star Trek. It's a similar concept to the wacky Marshall Sportiest stories, but it was before them, and it was going to be like an Uncharted trilogy thing, a spin-off Elseworld thing, and then it was decided late in the game that we would take those things down and change the other two back to Legacy, and then also thought, well, when I change this back to Legacy too, it'll the better brand recognition if it's called Legacy. Nobody's heard of that other thing. Okay, Legacy. So what is Legacy? This is not the season finale. The season finale from last season was the 2-part Marshall Sportist story. That was the season finale. Two 90-minute movies. This is the 2-hour other one. It was 2 hours and 13 minutes. Now it's 2 hours and 7 minutes. So they cut some stuff out of this. Not substantially though. Just little things here and there. The pacing was a little weird, mostly because of breathy pauses and dialogue related to just immediately going into the story without having a script. It didn't have much of one. It had a 45-minute treatment from blogs that had taken off the calendar. It's the same thing we did with the Marshall Sportist one. We did blogs and transcripts and then read them, basically. That's kind of what we do with it. Season premiere of next season, which is I do it in September for the anniversary, very shortly, because we're literally going from one season to the next. Because there was a hiatus between February and May where there was no filming during season 3. And when we got to May, we jumped into the Transformer stuff and the other stuff this season, the Transformers v Star Trek stuff, and the other, and then this, and then the Companion Obsession, then the Starfleet Academy crossovers, the 2 of them, and now this. This is sort of Strange Worlds, but it doesn't have any Strange New Worlds action figures as they didn't make them. Also, the newer figures that come out from Nacelle, they are too tall. They're not like Playmates ones. They're halfway between Playmates and those Playmates exclusive ones from First Contact. They're about the same size as the First Contact ones. Completely the wrong scale for everybody. Well, but yes, but they're, yeah. So this is just another super fan story. It's not the script. It's them talking about a script. It's not. Yeah, just making another thing on the planet. And also, the Chimera episodes are on their thing on the planet. No. But not actually showing what's happening on the strange new world on the planet. They just keep going from there. This one was dealing with Stardate Zero, though. This was dealing with the bizarre idea that, well, early on, David Gerald was involved in that. When he was doing Star Trek The Next Generation, he was part of the show's Bible writing team. And even DC Fontana and Dan Duane and Freeman, a bunch of other people, Wally Torme, a bunch of people, they were putting together a script, and they're like, wouldn't it be funny if like the star dates like were reset and recalibrated so every season is 1,000 more, so it's 1,000 more, so 410000 2364 and 510000 would be 2374, that kind of thing. But what was it when it was zero? Let's go back 41 years, 41 digits, put you in 2323. So Stardate Zero. Characters like, I want to go back to Stardate Zero and nab Captain Picard as a cadet. It's a crazy, silly idea, and that's the story. Not the real story's in there. That's a B story, and it's about that too. But his motivation is insane. He wants to pitch Star Trek to Star Trek, basically. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So yeah, actually the Stardate Zero thing, even though it's said in the original commentary thing, it's 11 years in the making. It's even further back than that. There was a shipping story, a Cillian shipping story, the Pale Universe, Star Drive, and there was a Stardate Zero, and then there was a Chimera episode called Stardate Zero. So they've done Stardate Zero twice before. The Chimera one and the other one. And yeah. So yeah, but to do an actual episode about that is wild. You know, trimmed up the scenes here and there. Changed the beginning and ending song to the celebration song. That was a better one. Shored up the beginning and the ending crawls where they moved through space, and that thing dragged on for a full minute and a half on two of those, or seemed to. And you didn't need to, the wormhole didn't need to be that long. That other stuff didn't need to be that long. I kept the counseling scene at the end, but I didn't need to. The Picard scene at the end, because they wouldn't really in Starfleet have assigned Gumilt to time travel back to go visit the TMS people on Chimera either, but apparently they did, because they're silly. Yeah, I suppose once the story is over, then what else is it going to do? But yeah, this is so there's a trilogy here, but now it's Legacy. It's basically what's going on. So Stardate Zero should be watched, and then the two Martial Sports episodes after that, even though this is a re-release of the first of the three stories to make it the trilogy, but not charted, because I don't know what I was thinking there, making it more Legacy. That's we near the end of August. Yeah, the convention. I'll see you at the convention. Yeah, GalaxyCon. It's been 3 years. We can go back. Anyway,